Hey there. Welcome back to Simple Spoken English. Let me ask you something. Do you want to improve your English faster than ever before? Of course you do. Now here's the big question. What is the one habit that can boost your English skills more than anything else? No, it's not a magic trick. No, it's not some secret formula. It's something so simple, yet so powerful. Reading. Yes, my friend, reading in English every single day can totally change your life. But now you might be wondering, why reading? I already watch English movies, attend classes, and even do my homework. Good question. And I'm going to answer it in a way that'll stay with you forever. So stay with me till the end. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. Now let's dive into Chapter 1, The Power of Reading for English Learners. Why is reading so powerful? Many beginners ask me, why should I read in English? Isn't watching videos or listening to podcasts enough? Let me tell you the truth. Reading is the most powerful tool you can use to learn English naturally, deeply, and effectively. Let me explain how. When you read, you see English in action. You see how words are used in real situations. You don't just learn new words, you learn how they are used in full sentences. You understand the meaning, the context, and the feeling behind the words. For example, do you know the meaning of the word context? Pause here and say, if you don't know, comment below and I'll explain it to you. Reading helps you in so many ways. You learn new vocabulary almost every time you read. You understand grammar rules without even memorizing them. You see real examples of how sentences are made. You get better at spelling and pronunciation because you see how words are written. The world is changing, and so should you. Let's look at the bigger picture. Years ago, only 1 out of 100 people went to university. But today, that number is 7 out of 100, and it's growing fast. What does that mean for you? It means the world is becoming more educated, more competitive. Whether you're a student, a teacher, an office worker, or even a mechanic, you need English. And not just spoken English, but the ability to read and understand well. Reading is not optional anymore. It's a basic skill you must have. So if you want to grow in your job, if you want to study abroad, if you want to communicate with the world, then reading in English is not just helpful. It's essential. Why reading is better than just watching movies. Watching English movies is fun. Podcasts are great, but here's the problem. When you watch or listen, the words fly by fast. You hear the language, but you don't always see how it's built. You might miss small but important things, like prepositions, tenses, or new words. But when you read, you have full control. You can pause. You can think. You can look up a word if you don't understand it. You can read it again and again until it makes sense. That's the real power of reading. Reading boosts all 4 skills. Here's something amazing. Reading doesn't just help you with reading. It also improves your speaking, because you see how sentences are spoken in real life. Writing, because you learn grammar and structure naturally. Listening, because once you learn a word by reading, you start to recognize it when someone says it. Thinking in English, because you start to form thoughts in English, not just translate from your native language. That's why I always say, read more if you want to speak more. Want to improve grammar? Don't just memorize, read. Now, let's talk about something super powerful, reading for fun. Some of you might be thinking, yeah, reading sounds great, but I don't have time to read all day, and honestly, English books are boring and difficult. Well, my friend, I completely understand. It's a common feeling. Many learners think reading means sitting down with a thick grammar book or a classic novel full of hard words. But here's the truth. Reading doesn't have to be boring. Not at all. Let me tell you something important. You don't need to read big, difficult books to learn English. In fact, that's one of the biggest mistakes learners make. They pick up something way too hard and end up checking the dictionary every 2 minutes. That's not fun, right? When learning feels like a chore, we lose motivation. And when we lose motivation, we stop. But here's the good news. Learning can be fun if you choose the right material. Imagine reading a comic book that makes you laugh, a mystery story that keeps you guessing, or a fairy tale that takes you to another world. You're having fun, right? But at the same time, you're learning English. That's the magic of reading for pleasure. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly enjoyed reading something in English? Was it a funny YouTube comment? A blog post about your favorite movie? Or maybe a quote on Instagram? If it made you smile, laugh, or think, congratulations. You were learning, without pressure, without stress. Now, let me share a fascinating story with you. Back in the 1960s, there was an experiment in a reform school. Some boys were given exciting books to read, action-packed stories like James Bond novels. They weren't forced to read. They were just given the freedom to choose what they liked. Guess what happened? The boys who chose to read improved their reading and writing skills. The boys who didn't read, no improvement. That's how powerful reading for fun is. When you enjoy what you're reading, your brain stays alert, curious, and active. Learning happens naturally. So here's a motivational line for you. If you enjoy the journey, success becomes a habit. When you read something you love, your mind opens up. You start to notice how sentences are made. You begin to pick up new words and expressions. You start to feel the natural rhythm of the English language. You're not just learning words, you're building confidence. Step by step, day by day. Now, let me give you some practical ideas. These are easy, and you can start today. Start with short and easy reads. Don't jump into something too complex. Pick children's books, comics, or short blog posts. They use simple words and are often fun to read. Choose what you love. If you're into sports, read sports news. If you love gaming, check out game reviews and gaming blogs. Into fashion? Read fashion tips and style blogs. The more interested you are, the more you'll read. Try audiobooks and podcasts. Not a fan of reading long texts? No problem. Listen to English audiobooks or podcasts. You'll learn pronunciation, rhythm, and meaning, all while enjoying a good story. Use social media wisely. Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, they're full of posts and comments in English. These bite-sized pieces of content are perfect for daily reading, and they teach you real-life English, slang, humor, and everyday expressions. Let me ask you another quick question. Do you know what the word absorb means? Hint. It's what a sponge does to water, just like your brain when it reads something interesting. Type the meaning in the comments below. Here's the best part. Reading for fun doesn't feel like studying at all. You're just relaxing, smiling, and enjoying the content. But secretly, your brain is working hard, learning new words, understanding sentence patterns, and building your fluency. So next time you open a book or scroll through a blog post, remember this. Every word you read is a step closer to English fluency. Reading doesn't have to be serious. It doesn't have to be boring. It can be light, funny, exciting, emotional, and everything in between. The only rule is this: read what makes you happy. Because when you're happy, your brain learns faster. So go ahead. Find something fun to read today. And tell me in the comments, what will you read today to improve your English while having fun? Stick around, because in the next chapter, I'll be sharing some smart, easy strategies to make reading a part of your daily routine, even if you're super busy. Trust me, it's easier than you think. Chapter 3, Reading Over Time, the Long-Term Benefits. Now you might be thinking, okay, reading sounds fun and useful, but does it really help in the long run? The answer is yes, absolutely yes. Reading may not show results overnight, but if you read regularly, even just for 10 or 15 minutes a day, you'll see a noticeable improvement in your English. Think of it like watering a plant. You don't see the growth immediately, but with time, it blossoms. That's exactly how reading works. You don't need to read for hours. Just a few minutes every day is enough. What matters is consistency, not the length of time. It's the small, daily efforts that build up over weeks and months to create something powerful. You won't even realize it's happening. One day you'll just notice that reading English feels easier, your vocabulary is stronger, and you're speaking more confidently. Let me explain how this works. When you read, you expose your brain to English in a very natural way. You come across new words, different phrases, and sentence structures that you might never hear in movies or classrooms. This kind of exposure helps your brain understand how English really works in the real world. Over time, you begin to recognize these expressions when you hear them in conversations or see them in writing. It's like your brain starts connecting the dots without you trying too hard. This is what experts call language intuition. You don't need to memorize every rule. Instead, your brain starts to feel what sounds right. For example, you won't have to think about whether it's "I made a mistake" or "I did a mistake." When you've read enough, you'll just know what sounds correct. That's the beauty of reading. It trains your ear and your mind without pressure or stress. You might be surprised to know that many studies have proven this. In one study conducted in the Fiji Islands, researchers found that students who read regularly outperformed those who only focused on grammar rules. The students who read more scored higher in all areas: reading, writing, and even speaking. Why? Because reading gave them more natural exposure to how English is used. Here's the important part. Reading gives you the compound effect. This means that small actions done consistently over time bring huge results. If you read just 10 minutes a day, that's more than 70 minutes a week, and over 4 hours a month. Over a year, that's nearly 50 hours of reading. Can you imagine how much your English would improve if you gave it 50 hours of joyful, pressure-free practice? Unlike speaking or listening, reading gives you time. You can pause, look up a word, reread a sentence, and really understand what you're learning. This deep engagement helps you learn faster and retain more. When you speak or listen, everything moves quickly, sometimes too quickly to understand everything. But with reading, you're in control. And that's not all. Reading also opens your mind to different cultures and ways of thinking. When you read stories or articles from other parts of the world, you get to see how people express themselves, what humor they use, how they solve problems, or how they describe emotions. This helps you understand English on a deeper level. Not just the words, but the feelings behind the words. It helps you become not just a better English speaker, but a better communicator. Let's break down the long-term benefits of reading one by one. 1. Vocabulary expansion. The more you read, the more new words you'll see. And these words won't just be random. You'll see them in context, in sentences. You'll know how they're used. Slowly, they'll become part of your own speaking and writing without you even trying. 2. Grammar mastery. Forget boring grammar rules. When you read, you constantly see correct sentence structures. Your brain absorbs them naturally. Over time, you'll start using correct grammar automatically, not because you memorized it, but because you've seen it used so many times in books, articles, and stories. Chapter 3. Fluency and Confidence. Reading regularly boosts your fluency. You'll find it easier to express your thoughts. Your sentences will flow better. You'll hesitate less while speaking. Why? Because your brain already knows the patterns and words from all that reading practice. 4. Cultural understanding. English isn't just about grammar, it's about culture. By reading content from different parts of the world, you learn about idioms, humor, social behaviors, and emotional expressions. You'll understand what people mean even when they don't say things directly. This is what makes your English sound natural. 5. Motivation and habit building. Let's be honest. Some days you just don't feel like learning. But if reading becomes a habit, it doesn't feel like work. It becomes something you look forward to. Whether it's reading a short blog post, a funny comic, or a chapter of a novel, it keeps your learning consistent. And consistency is what truly brings results. So what's the takeaway here? Reading is not just a temporary trick to learn new words. It's a long-term strategy that transforms your English from basic to fluent. It gives you the tools, the confidence, and the natural flow of a real speaker. It shapes your mind in a way that grammar books and vocabulary lists never can. Even if you're busy, even if life feels chaotic, just read a little every day. Make it part of your routine. Carry a book with you. Save an interesting article on your phone, or read a short story while waiting for your bus. These small moments add up. 1 year from now, you'll look back and thank yourself for starting today. In the next chapter, we'll talk about how to make reading a simple part of your daily life, even if you have a tight schedule or don't know where to begin. Trust me, it's easier than you think. And once you get into the habit, there's no turning back. Chapter 4. The Science of Learning. How reading helps your brain. Have you ever wondered why reading helps so much in learning English? What actually happens inside your brain when you read? The answer is more interesting than you might think. You see, reading is not just about memorizing vocabulary or learning grammar rules. It's much deeper than that. When you read, your brain is doing something incredible. It's building connections. You're not just seeing words, you're seeing how those words work in different situations. And this is exactly what helps you remember them. Let's compare it to something simple. Imagine trying to memorize a long list of grammar rules. It might work for a short time, but after a few days, you forget. Why? Because your brain doesn't find a connection. But when you read a short story or an article, those same rules appear naturally. They're not just dry rules anymore. They're part of a living language. Your brain sees the patterns. It sees how the language moves and flows. And slowly, without even trying, your brain starts to learn. Let's take a basic example. When you read a simple story, like a story about two friends going to a market, you don't just learn words like go, buy, or talk. You also learn how these words are used in real conversations. You see the sentence structures. You see how the language expresses emotions. And most importantly, you see how native speakers use these phrases in natural situations. And guess what? While you're enjoying the story, something magical is happening inside your brain. It's building neural pathways, new roads that help your brain process English faster. Each time you read, your brain adds more roads, more shortcuts, more paths. This is how your brain rewires itself to become better at understanding English. Science supports this. Research shows that reading activates multiple parts of the brain at once. Areas related to memory, imagination, problem-solving, and even emotion come alive when you read. No wonder it feels like reading brings language to life. And there's more. When you read, you're using something called working memory. This is your brain's ability to hold and manage information. For example, if you're reading a story, you have to remember who the characters are, where they are, what's happening, and what certain words mean. All this makes your brain stronger, not just in English, but in other areas too. Over time, reading also improves something very important: comprehension. That means your brain gets better at understanding. The more you read, the faster you understand new sentences, new expressions, and even new accents or speaking styles. Suddenly, watching a movie or reading a news article becomes easier, and you won't even realize how much you've improved because it feels so natural. This type of learning is called incidental learning. That means learning without forcing it. You're not sitting with a textbook and struggling through every page. You're just enjoying a story or reading an article. And yet, your brain is working behind the scenes, collecting new vocabulary, understanding sentence patterns, and strengthening grammar without pressure. Let's break this down into 5 simple truths. 1. Neural pathways. Every time you read, your brain creates new connections. These help you understand and use English better, faster, and more naturally. 2. Contextual learning. Reading shows you how English is actually used, in real life, in real conversations. You're not just learning, you're feeling the language. 3. Improved working memory. Your brain becomes stronger at remembering words, ideas, and storylines. This helps you become better not just at English, but also at thinking clearly in general. Chapter 4. Faster comprehension. Reading helps your brain process information quicker. You'll soon find that understanding movies, talks, and conversations becomes much easier. 5. Incidental learning. You learn without pressure. You enjoy, and your brain learns. That's the most powerful way to improve. So, when you read, you're doing more than just seeing words on a page. You're training your brain to think in English. And that's the real secret. Remember, no matter where you're starting from, whether you're a beginner or already know some English, reading can help you grow faster than you imagine. And the best part? It's enjoyable. You're not forcing anything. You're simply reading something you like, and the learning happens on its own. In the next chapter, I'll tell you a true story, my own story, about how I used reading to learn a completely new language without going to classes or memorizing rules. I promise, it will inspire you. Stay with me. Chapter 5. The Experiment. How I learned a language by reading. You've heard the benefits. You understand the science. But maybe you're still thinking, will this really work for me? Let me share something personal with you. A few years ago, I decided to learn Spanish, but I didn't want to sit in boring grammar classes or spend hours memorizing verb tables. I wanted to try something different. So I set a goal to read 1 million words in Spanish. Yes, that sounds like a lot. But I didn't focus on the number. I focused on the process, 1 page at a time. In the beginning, I started with simple books, children's stories, transcripts of basic conversations. These had short sentences, easy vocabulary, and lots of repetition. Perfect for a beginner. At first, I needed to use a dictionary often. I paused a lot. I didn't understand everything. But that was okay. I kept going. After a few weeks, something amazing happened. I started recognizing words and phrases. I didn't need to translate every sentence in my head anymore. My brain was picking up patterns. Next, I moved to books I had already read in English, like Harry Potter. Because I knew the story, I didn't get confused. I could focus on how the Spanish words were used. I saw the differences, the similarities, and how sentences were formed. And my brain made connections between the English and Spanish versions without me trying too hard. Little by little, I became more confident. I started reading Spanish books I had never read before. Real novels by authors like Isabel Allende and Jorge Luis Borges. They were challenging, yes, but they were also full of beautiful, natural language. Sometimes I didn't understand a word, but I didn't panic. I kept reading. And guess what? In most cases, I figured out the meaning just from the story. The brain is smart like that. It learns from context. By the time I reached my goal of 1 million words, something magical had happened. I could understand Spanish books. I could watch Spanish movies. I could even have conversations with native speakers. And I had done all this just by reading, not by memorizing grammar or taking expensive courses. And I didn't read for hours every day. Some days I read just 10 or 15 minutes, but I read consistently. I enjoyed the stories, and every day my Spanish grew stronger. This method changed the way I think about learning any language. It made me realize learning doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be consistent. And the best part? It didn't feel like studying. It felt like living the language. So if you're wondering whether reading can really help you learn English, I'm here to tell you, it absolutely can. You don't need to memorize grammar rules. You don't need to stress about every mistake. You just need to read. Read what you enjoy. Read a little every day. And trust the process. Because your brain is always learning, even when you don't notice it. In the next chapter, I'll give you some simple, practical tips to start your own reading journey, no matter what level you're at. Keep going. You're doing great. Chapter 6. The Right Way to Read. Choose books you love. Let me tell you a secret. One that could change the way you learn English forever. If you truly want to improve your English, not just memorize a few words, not just pass an exam, but really speak and think in English, you have to fall in love with the process. And the easiest, most powerful way to do that is to read books you love. Sounds simple, right? But here's the truth. Many learners make the mistake of picking books that are supposed to be useful. Big grammar books, complicated novels, or even books that they don't enjoy at all. Why? Because someone told them, this is important. You have to read this to become fluent. But let me ask you this. Have you ever started a book that felt like a burden? You tried reading the first few pages, but it was so difficult, so boring, that you gave up. You felt guilty. You thought the problem was you, not the book. But the real problem was that you weren't interested. Your brain didn't feel excited. You weren't emotionally connected. So here's my honest advice. If you want English to become a part of your life, choose books that make your eyes light up. Don't worry about whether they're important or advanced. Choose what you genuinely enjoy. If you love comics, read comics. If detective stories give you goosebumps, dive into them. If fantasy worlds make your imagination fly, go for it. Even if it's a love story that makes you cry or a funny book that makes you laugh, read that. Because when you enjoy what you read, you're not just learning English. You're building a relationship with the language. And that's the key. Think about this. When a child learns their first language, Do they start with grammar rules? Do they begin by memorizing vocabulary lists? No. They listen to stories. They hear the same words again and again, in cartoons, in conversations, in bedtime stories, and slowly, naturally, they absorb the language. You can do the same. Let's talk about motivation for a moment. When you want to do something, your brain doesn't resist. It opens up. It becomes curious. Learning becomes effortless. That's exactly what happens when you read a book that excites you. Instead of saying, "Ugh, I have to read today," you say, "I can't wait to find out what happens next." You read one page, then 2, then 10. Before you know it, you've finished a chapter. And guess what? You've just spent 30 minutes improving your English without even realizing it. That's not a task. That's transformation. Even famous language experts support this idea. Stephen Krashen, a respected linguist, once said, "Only read material that is fun and easy for you." He recommends reading books where you can understand at least 98% of the words. Why? Because when you understand almost everything, your brain doesn't get stuck. You stay in the flow, and in that flow, you learn new words naturally, through context, not pressure. Let's be honest. If every sentence is a puzzle, you won't enjoy reading. You'll struggle, and eventually you'll stop. So don't make reading a punishment. Make it a pleasure. Here's something magical that happens when you follow this advice. The more you read what you enjoy, the better your vocabulary becomes. You begin to understand grammar, not because you studied the rules, but because you've seen the patterns in real sentences. You start speaking more naturally. Writing feels easier. Your brain starts saying, "I know this language," and that's powerful. Let me give you a quick example. A student of mine named Priya once told me, "Sir, I tried reading Shakespeare because everyone said it was good, but I didn't understand anything. I felt stupid." So I asked her, "What do you actually like to read?" She blushed and said, "Romantic novels." "Then read them," I said. 3 months later, she came back smiling. "Now I can speak better English than ever before. I even started writing my own stories." That's the difference joy makes. That's the power of choosing books you love. So how do you choose the right book? Simple. Ask yourself 2 questions. 1. Does this book interest me? 2. Can I understand most of it without a dictionary? If the answer to both is yes, you're on the right path. And don't worry if the book seems too easy. That's perfectly fine. The goal isn't to impress others, it's to build your confidence. As your reading skill grows, you'll naturally move to more complex material. But you have to start where it feels comfortable. Even if that means reading a children's book at first, do it. Even if that means reading the same story multiple times, go for it. Your journey is your own. No one else gets to decide how you should learn. Now here's one more thing to remember. Reading regularly is more important than reading perfectly. You don't have to finish a book in 1 week. You don't have to understand every word. You just have to keep going. 1 page at a time, 1 story at a time. So starting today, make a promise to yourself. Pick up something you love, be it a light comic, a thrilling mystery, or a fantasy adventure, and just start reading. Even if it's just for 10 minutes a day, even if you think it's too easy, even if you think it won't work, because it will work. Your brain will thank you. And one day you'll look back and realize, wow, I can actually speak English now. I did it. In the next chapter, I'll give you some practical strategies to turn reading into a daily habit, because consistency, my friend, is what turns small steps into big results. so stay tuned. And before you go, if you learned something today, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to Simple Spoken English for more tips like this. And hey, if you're reading something fun right now, tell me about it in the comments. I'd love to know what kind of books help you the most. Happy reading. Keep learning.